Hello, and welcome back to the Long Distance Love Bombs podcast. I am your host, Dr. Jeremy Goldberg. My guest today is my dear friend, Janne Robinson. She is one of my best pals. She's a poet, she's a writer, she has a couple books out. She has a merchandise company called This Is For the Women. She does all kinds of creative badassery in the world. She is a fiery truth teller. She has a huge heart. She's one of the more sensitive and caring people that I know. And in this conversation, we dive into truth and creativity and expression and showing up authentically. And it's so good. There's a couple of people also on the Zoom call asking questions periodically. During the first part of the conversation, Janne is a little bit more subdued, a little more tired perhaps. And then as we go on, the fire starts building, starts getting thrown around. The passion erupts a bit more. She gets a bit more fiery. And we have a lot of fun in this one. So without further ado, here's my pal, Janne Robinson. Oh, also, if you need something to do over New Year's Eve from December 27th to January the 3rd, I'm hosting a retreat in Costa Rica with my friends Trevor Boehm and Lila Dilla. And we have just been given word from the authorities down there that we can have a few more people in the space. So there are spots available if you feel like ziplining in a rainforest with us, doing workshops, having meals with this healthy, organic amazingness. We're going to be doing breath work, going to the beach, going to a waterfall, playing in the rainforest. It's going to be so good. We rented out the entire space 2 years ago and did this retreat, and it was an absolute blast. And we're doing it again. So if you need something to do over New Year's that does not include overpriced drinks in an overcrowded club with a busy, cold night waiting for a taxi, come play with us in Costa Rica. Come hang in the tropics. We can have breakfast together, and it'll be glorious. So I do wanted to put that on your plate or plant that seed. If you're still thinking about how to bring in the new year, why not sit on a beach with us and do it together? Okay, that's it. Have fun with this conversation with Janne Robinson. You can check out her books in the show notes and on Instagram. She's wonderful. I love her. And that's it. I'm so annoyed. Every time I hear that voice on Zoom that's like, recording in progress, do we have your consent? I'm like, why? Why could they not have chosen a softer, better voice for that?
With the Australian accent, like the GPS.
Or like hire somebody that everybody knows their voice, like Morgan Freeman or Christopher Walken or something. Like, you know what I mean? It's like $1 billion international company. Like, why that? Like, anyway.
Maybe because people then would have an opinion about it and then they get triggered about who it wasn't. So a robot maybe is less triggerable because everyone and their dog would have an opinion around who the right person would be.
or even better yet, make it a choice. Like if I want to choose some Australian dude or some Scottish woman or some anybody, that's what we thought I would start off the conversation with, hey? Like I bet he's going to talk about robot voices. Janne Robinson, welcome to the podcast. We've got some people observing who will ask some questions at a later time. But for those who are listening later and do not know you, have never heard of you, like who is Janne Robinson? How do you describe yourself? What's your deal?
I feel like our identities are always changing, but I also very firmly believe that we are not what we do. So my name is Janne Robinson and I do things, but that's not who I am. So if we were to go into who am I? So I, as a human, part of my identity is being Canadian and was born in a cabin in the Yukon and Whitehorse and lived in Nelson, BC and Edmonton and was raised by two mamas, which is part of who I am. And currently I'm in Encinitas, California, and I came here for warm weather and surfing were the two biggest reasons and pieces. Was looking for a home because I believe so much of our environment shapes how we are, how we feel, how we interact with this world. And I wanted accessibility to sunshine and surfing. And then what I give my life force and energy to is poetry and writing and working in many different ways with people. But ultimately, I just care about people and just care about how they feel and them feeling liberated. And so that shifts from one-on-one to programs to speaking to retreats. But ultimately, I just wake up and I give a fuck about humankind. It's ultimately what we do as coaches. We're like, well, I care how you feel. Hi, my name is Janne. I care how you feel. I also care about writing. So that's my very human bio. And I've written some books and done some things. But yeah, those are my pieces.
I read this. What?
This is the most informal bio.
I've written some things and I've done some stuff. You've got a couple poetry books. You've produced some spoken word poetry videos. You directed. You're a public speaker. You're a thought leader. You're an influencer of influencers. You're a big-hearted Canadian weirdo. I have a question because I was reading through your website earlier today, and there was this really cool line that I am curious to get your opinion on. And it said that it was in your bio, basically, and it says that Janne Robinson enrages and inspires those who may believe they are trapped. So you enrage people and you inspire people at the same time. Like, what do you make of that? Why are you so polarizing?
I think I'm polarizing because I'm honest, and we live in a world that often doesn't have the courage to be fully honest. And I think that we are always a mirror to each other. So when I think about enraging or inspiring people, I believe that everything that I see in you that I either adore or that pisses me off is either maybe parts of myself I haven't stepped into, or I really do believe that we're just showing people areas of their life that may be more aligned or they need to work on. And so I think that because I choose to be fully truthful, that triggers and enrages sometimes, because we've learned to adapt ourselves to more of a conformity to survive as a species. It's been more like conform and do as the others. And so I think part of it is been the courage to create art and to speak truth and express in a way that makes the world feel uncomfortable in some ways. And yeah, I firmly believe just that if I see a woman and I'm jealous of her, like she just has often a part of her that I have not yet stepped into inside of myself. And so I met a woman who's been doing somatic experiencing as a practitioner for 4 years, and she's super embodied in certain ways. And I was like, whoa, and just really admiring that. And that for me isn't that there is a superior human or it's just, wow, there's some work there to be done. And there's some pieces of myself to be really stepped into. And so I think that's the gift of witnessing each other. We look at duality or non-duality, or we look at some of the Buddhism pieces of oneness. It's like, why have separateness other than to learn? And separateness isn't about comparing or judging or beating ourselves up or measuring. It really is about the opportunity to, I think, learn about this individual existence and yet the same one collective existence that we're all living.
So you're kind of poking at people's blind spots. Is that why they're enraged at you, or that why it's not like you're intentionally doing it, although you definitely do that sometimes.
Oh yeah, sometimes I definitely do it. Definitely. I made a little, I was going to send it to you last night. I made like a little comedy reel. I haven't shared yet, but yeah. I think that it's not actually, I don't really like think about people, to be honest. It's not often, the enraging isn't, I want to get a reaction out of people. It is often just, I show up and express in a way that triggers people. And I think the triggers belong to them often of maybe why it activates them. Sometimes I'm aware when I post something that it's going to get a reaction because it's something that's maybe sensitive or there's stuff around, and other times not. But I don't really think that's our job, you know. I think that our only job as artists and as writers. I had a friend who wrote me last night who's releasing a book, and she was like, I don't know what the fuck to do with myself. And I'm like, you're done. You showed up and you poured and you created something that was true to you, and you wrote things and gave 100,000,000% of yourself to not only creation of the poetry, but creation of the book and designing and the paper qualities and all the things that we do. And the second that we hit publish or send and put something into the world, whether it's a book being released or it's something on the internet or it's a course, we're just kind of done. And the only other responsibility I'd say there is like, I've been learning that marketing is a real thing. So the people that often do well in this world doesn't mean they have anything good to say. It just means they've got a good marketing agency often. So yeah, maybe take control of marketing. But after that, after you've hired good people around you, you're done. You know, the world will claim its resonance or it will walk by uninterested. And I don't believe any of that belongs to us. So as far as where the triggers come from, the only thing that I know that is true is that we do not exist with the level of honesty that I am comfortable with in this world. I know that largely over and over and over again in relationship, people are uncomfortable or have to learn how to kind of, what's called equalize, or I don't know, either way, just like get into a space of, oh dang, you know, we're going there. And I don't think there's I do think there's a right way. I think the right way is to be honest with each other, but that's my values. So, you know, I think truth is really healing.
Yeah. So it sounds like when you were talking about the posting thing, it's not so much about trying to instigate purposefully that you trigger people or that you piss people off, et cetera, as much as it is you simply honoring what feels true to you and what you desire to say at that time. And so you're kind of prioritizing your truth over how that truth might be received in the world. Is that accurate?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's often directly what I'm experiencing. It's just what I'm sharing as it flows into my life and my world, and then letting it out.
Yeah. And just to add to what you said previously, like that's in direct opposition to how most people in our society operates, right? Which is, should I say that? How's that going to be received? What if that happens? What if that happens? So how do you deal with the fears that come up when you think about sharing vulnerability or truth? Or do you not consider those things? Because you put up some pretty raw, for those like listening, like you've written about abortion, you've written about patriarchy, basically any hot topic. I feel like you could be like, oh yeah, I touched on that at some point.
Mm-hmm. I think that part of being a teacher is being the hero and the villain, and that good expressionists and teachers and artists of this world will stand boldly in what they believe and just allow dominoes and things to fall as they fall. And so it never feels good being rejected. I was actually talking about this with Mark the other day because people are like, oh, you know, you've been doing this for 8 years. Like, you must just be used to getting rejected. And I'm like, no, I'm just like, I'm a fucking soft, mushy cancer. Like, I go like all the way into my crab and I'm just like in my little shell, like, so I mean, the world sees me as Scorpio. That's my rising, but my sign is Cancer, and I'm pretty soft and mushy. So I think it hurts less when it's people you don't know. I think that it hurts more when it's people that are close to you. I think that those are different conversations and pieces for sure of how our art is received by people we really have an actual intimate relationship with versus someone on the internet who we might not have shared real intimacy or space with. We can have conversation and relationship, but it's different, I think, when it's those directly near you. But no, I go through phases where there's so much adversity and contrast, and rejection happening online that I want to get off the internet because it's overwhelming. I think as creatures, we live to belong, we live to connect, we live to be accepted, and to get hit with the amount of stuff that happens on the internet is challenging for sure. So I don't think it's gotten easier. Sometimes it's easier, but I also just I would rather start conversations and have people think and spark pieces in the world and show up and live my values and deal with the adversity that comes back from that than do it any other way. So,
yeah, maybe it's not that the rejection gets easier, but just that you are better at dealing with it now than you used to be. In the same way that heartbreak or grief, those are hard, terrible things to deal with. Mm-hmm. But I think in those moments after you've gone through a few storms, it's like, oh yeah, this is the part where I feel overwhelmed, or oh, this is the part where I can't get off the ground, I'm gonna have to cry for a couple hours, or oh, this is the part where, right? And so you're perhaps a bit more fluent or competent in those feelings. Mm-hmm. And because of that, you have a bit of more confidence to go into those spaces that might create those feelings. Is that fair?
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. Like once you go through enough heartbreaks, you're like, the world doesn't fall, or if it does fall, it's a few days, really hard, and then it gets easier. So yeah, I think experience, we get wisdom from experience. And so until we've had the wisdom of getting out of being eaten alive a few times, we don't know what that will be like. And I've had to really advocate for that, though, because I've actually had a lot of people quit my business because they're wanting me to be more neutral because we're selling things. And I've had several people I've had to let go. And actually my newest business manager I hired, I said to her, I will never prioritize making money over being honest. So if we're ever in some kind of partnership and I'm giving you rev share, I may show up the day before election and be like, fuck Donald Trump. And we might lose like $100,000. And like, I don't care. So if you care about that, don't work with me. It's literally what I said. She was like, okay. Like, cool. Glad we've had that conversation because lots of other people have quit.
Right.
So it's I mean, you know what it feels like. Like when we have experiences where we don't live our values, it just feels like we're going against the grain,
Yeah. So maybe that's a jumping in spot. Talk to me about alignment. Do you hear this buzzword all the time? It's like, oh, I'm out of alignment, or just got to align with your energy and your sacral chakra. Like, what does alignment mean to you? How do you use that, or do you use that?
Yeah, I think that fundamentally we have a compass inside that is governed by our own values that we choose and live by. And so some of my personal values that are really big are integrity. And again, how we define everything is different. So how I define integrity will be different from how you define integrity. I've also done defining work with a values person around how I personally define those, but integrity, honesty, transparency, accountability, responsibility, compassion, grace, respect, and empathy are some of my largest kind of business in the world art values. And then on a personal level, I also really appreciate humor and play. I have a few other that are just applicable to me and maybe not my work. And when I'm living outside of my values, for instance, I don't really avoid the uncomfortable conversations. And so when I noticed myself, this is an example, my dog was attacked in the park by my house by another dog that has resource aggression. And so we had like a community meeting after it happened. And I talked to the owner, and Zeus had puncture wounds. It was like, and the dogs attacked a few other dogs. So the agreement and the commitment, which for me touches on values, was this dog is on leash anytime that me and Zeus are around. And that there's just a respect piece there. And they also were going to get training with a dog trainer around if he could learn to be, the dog's name is Brody, whether that dog could learn to be with other dogs or if it needs to be leashed. So there was 2 agreements made. And then a few weeks ago, I was in the park with Zeus and they didn't leash Brody. And so there's a part of me that wanted to avoid the conversation. There was a part of me, I just put Zeus on his leash because I didn't have a phone to call the owner. I went for a walk, and there's a part of me inside that did kind of want to avoid the conversation. But for me, being in integrity and responsibility is the follow up. So I just, when I got home, I called the owner and said, "Hey, did you see me today? And this is the agreement and the commitment that we made. And so I just want to reiterate that that's important to me." And just reiterated it again, and then got on the same page. And so for me, that's being in integrity with, if other people also fall out of integrity with commitments or agreements, being able to, for me to be in alignment with my values, I have to show up in a way that I'm living those values in this world. And so there's lots of different ways of examples. And I often feel alignment when I'm feeling misaligned. I will just not feel really good in my body, or it'll feel a little bit off sometimes. And I'll just be aware of, where am I a micro or a macro bit out of alignment with a personal agreement with myself, or maybe with this world.
I like that. And to those on the call, any of you have any questions for Janne? You can raise your hand or put them in the chat, or I can just continue assaulting her with random queries about her life. So yeah, at any time, do let me know if you've got something that comes up for you. Janne, next question. You describe truth as medicine. It's not just oh, it's in alignment, or oh, that it's part of my integrity, but you run a program, I think, called Your Truth is Your Medicine. So how do you view it in that sense, as not just a good thing, but a therapeutic healing thing?
Yeah, well, that's from the experience of living a life that just wasn't really giving me joy, and where I felt trapped in. So for me, that was living in a city, living in Edmonton, Alberta, bartending, selling condos, not making art, and just feeling really not liberated. Really just, I'm going to lay down and stay here. And is there a different way? And just kind of, I think the wheels we can get in as human beings. And then I shifted my whole life. And my first truth was I don't want to live in Edmonton. It's just cold and it's ugly. And it's just there's just no wild, there's no mountain, there's no oceans or lakes, and just wanting to shift one thing. And so I slowly started to change my life. I changed the city that I lived in. I changed my work. I started to write, and went on a journey of really discovering, I think, who I was, and giving myself the space to have the curiosity and also the courage to step into that. And every time that I took a step into, whether it was shifting one part of my life, was what it was able to open up space to be able to shift. I think that trapped, there could be lethargic or feeling depressed or low energy, or good indicators of us being out of alignment with ourselves. And then it kind of frees up energy the more that we have the courage to have the conversations, or to move out of the house with the roommate that we don't want to live with, or to quit our job, or to be able to shift those pieces, and coming into honesty and truth with myself around what I really needed and what really environmentally in all pieces was important to me was a huge piece. So I'd say that was the program. Your Truth is Your Medicine is kind of just how I shifted my life, and what freed up my energy and created space for me to evolve and shift over the last 8 years. And it's always ongoing work of getting new information and integrating and aligning. It's kind of a bummer. You're wait, don't I just do it once and it's done? And it's nope. I think that the key is to learn that it's a continuous checking in with ourselves and being in integrity with choices every single day as well around that.
So, Janne Robinson, you're talking about truth and how truth is perpetually evolving. There's new levels, new devils, is a phrase that Kendra likes to say. So what's something for you recently or currently that you're exploring, navigating, integrating? being frustrated by?
Mm. Have you heard of the still face experiment?
No.
It's an experiment that was done with babies. I learned about it in EMDR, and I'm also taking that. It's the trauma informed certification program with Peter Levine and the Embody Lab right now. And so I was learning about it in school as well. And it's this it's about attunement, and it's so interesting. I'm like learning this to work with clients, and you're like, oh shit, there's my personal experience. Like constantly you're like, all right, okay, all right. So there's a pitch, so that, and you can watch a video if you just Google the still face experiment. There's like a mom and a baby, and so it's about attunement and engaging. And so there's a mom over a baby, and maybe the mom goes like, and the baby's like, and then the mom's like, and the baby will be like, and then the baby does something really important, and it turns its face, and it's just taking a moment to go, whoa, I need to integrate, and kind of, that was a lot, and I need to process it and be with it. And an attuned mother will also turn away and process. And then when they're ready, they'll both go like, I'm ready for more experience and connection. And so that is what a healthy relationship is the fluctuation between I'm inside and I'm ready to connect, and kind of fluctuating. And so they talk about if a parent isn't attuned, if a parent isn't paying attention, and a child is crying out like 5 times or 10 times or 17 times, that's when our nervous systems develop to be hypervigilant and hyper available, because we don't know when the love and the attunement is going to come. And so then we start to accept very little levels of attunement. And what the teacher that was teaching this, Ariel Swartz, was saying, it's like breadcrumbs. Like we start looking for breadcrumbs to nourish us, and we start to be okay with breadcrumbs because it's just what is available to be there. And so that brought up a lot for me, because I grew up with a single mom who is really overwhelmed and on welfare, and her sister died. And there was a lot of moments where attunement wasn't fully necessary. And I'm also writing my memoir right now. And it's such an interesting, so I've processed and been with a lot of this, but what was interesting for me, and what is interesting for me, is where we're allowing breadcrumb relationships. Like, what is a whole loaf relationship? And even getting, and I was just dating a baker, which is the funny thing about this.
Of course.
Huge heartbreak. And so just getting really curious of, I was in therapy and just processing this of like, I have for a lot of my life thought that I wasn't enough, but in reality, how people have been showing up hasn't been enough. But there's a programming when we've had breadcrumb relationships to go, well, this is enough, because it was what we had as a level of attunement and attachment as children. And so what I've been in discovery in is like, what am I just adapting because other people are overwhelmed or busy? And what do I really want? And so like a good example is like, how often do I like a text message response? Like what does that look like in my world? And I'm always like, oh, it's good. You're busy, but it's like, I don't like people who wait 3 days to text me back, right? Doesn't feel good. But I have a friend who's a lama who's like 75. She's like a badass Buddhist teacher. And what was interesting for me is I've been mirroring that behavior in my overwhelm lately of being pretty bad on my phone. And she called me out on it. And so it was interesting to see the duality of where I've been accepting it and where I've also then kind of been giving it. And so, yeah, I'm in discovery of what are whole loaf relationships? What does it look like? What are my actual needs around? And not that anybody else is in a space of wrongness around their needs and their, relational pieces. But I think that some of us who grew up with parents who were doing their best and also overwhelmed is that we learned to modify our needs and wants because our biggest priority was them being okay. And so we kind of gauge the people around us to be like, I want you to take care of yourself. I see that you're overwhelmed. I see that you're this, and I can make all kinds of excuses for you. of why this is okay in our relationship. But the reality is it okay for me? And that's a whole other dialogue inside that I have with myself. And the answer is usually no. And so it's interesting. And for me on values, there's like an empathy compassion piece that's really strong around understanding people and attunement. And those, I can really meet people. And then it's like, where am I giving that to myself and focusing inside as well? And so that's a big thing on a personal level that I'm learning about. And then I'm also in the process of writing my memoir and learning a lot about um, discipline and creating space to write and sitting down and just being like, oh, like when you don't feel like writing and just being like, this is fucking shit, and just like doing it anyway. And just like, I have a friend, Boyd Vardy, and like whenever he's writing a book, I'm like, how are you doing? And he's like, I've been writing for a week and it's all terrible. It's all horseshit. And like, I finally get it of just that discipline isn't about waiting for a moment of inspiration to come. It's sitting down and holding the container and the space and creating the inspiration and the momentum and the energy from there. And I have a friend who's a musician, and he says, and if you sit down for an hour and nothing comes out of you, you probably shouldn't create what you're creating. Because something should show up. Maybe the first page or pages of writing will be crap, but eventually it gets good. So I think I'm learning around whole loaf relationships and really what is enough for me, like what measures the desirability of what I'm looking for in all my relationships. And then I'm also learning a lot about discipline and creativity and the process I've had with creativity and the process I'm cultivating, which is much more Stephen King or Stephen King, whatever his name is, like, you must sit in a house from 9 to 5 and put your suit on and drink your coffee. And I'm like, this guy had a fucking point. I used to make fun of him, but this guy had a fucking point.
Yeah, I love that. And somebody in the comments said, it's like if you're feasting on crumbs and then you get a slice, you might think it's the whole loaf of bread, but actually it's just a slice. And you don't know that until you actually go and try to find the whole loaf.
Mm-hmm.
Reminds me of this. I think I told this story on a previous podcast. So if you've heard it, just smile kindly for a minute and ignore me. And I'll probably tell it on every podcast moving forward, because this knife. So Kendra got me a knife for my birthday, and it fucking changed my life, because it was a nice, like, Japanese steel bread knife. I've never used a thing like this. And I cut this loaf of bread and I turned to her like this, Janne, and I was just like slack-jawed, bug-eyed, aghast. Like, how can something be this sharp? This is fucking mind-blowing, right? I was like, it's the sharpest thing I've ever seen. I'm like smiling while I'm cutting. Like, this is incredible. But then the next day, I kind of used it again, and I was realizing that this idea of sharp is just a data point. I'm like, my whole life, it was this. And then suddenly I have this new knife, and it's like, like, sharp is way the fuck up here. I'm like, oh my goodness, like, where else in my life is the same thing happening? So when you talk about connection, nervous system regulation, fulfillment, joy, and I think that it's sharp only because I've never actually experienced something that blows my brain and my heart out of the water, which I think is what you're saying here with relationships. And you touched on regulation, et cetera. It's like, oh, I thought full was when you eat a bunch of breadcrumbs and you're still kind of hungry, but like my whole life that felt full. And then you're like, somebody gives you a piece of bread. You're like, oh my goodness. And then somebody gives you a whole loaf. And you're like, okay, I'm not going to eat any crumbs ever again. This is the stuff, right?
And there's a moment where it's overwhelming and it's too much because we've learned to survive that we're almost like, and we have to like get used to like, oh, this is like the rest of the world will eat a whole loaf of bread as a meal. Like and so there's an unlearning. And I love that. I really love that. Thank you for sharing that. That was great. Yeah, it's pretty much creating new doorways to walk through for you. It's like every other now you have a new, what's it called? Like what's the word?
Level,
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, it's
possibility, potentiality, baseline.
baseline.
There you
Yeah,
go.
baseline's a good one of just new standards. And we should have standards. I'm actually really, maybe not expectations, but like, fuck yeah, standards. Like, you deserve a sharp knife. You've been baking bread,
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
That was it, Yana. The other thing, it reminds me, I had Sean Galanos on the podcast, and he said low expectations, high standards is like as a guideline to live your life. Low expectations, high standards. But it was the same thing. I'm like looking around my life. Like I got dressed the next day, I put on a t-shirt, and I'm like, do I like this t-shirt? Like if it messed me up for a good couple days. I mean, I'm still talking about it. This was in July. This is 3 months ago that I got this fucking knife. And I'm still like, is this tea that I'm drinking? Is this sharp? Like, this t-shirt, is this sharp? Like, where else am I settling? You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I feel that. I feel that for sure. When I find something I really love, I think it's important to have also people in our life who get to be the doorways of the standards we have on how we will allow ourselves to be treated. Like Mark, because one of our friends, my oldest friends, has been like a doorway for me of like, and like literally like men have to like walk through the doorway that is Mark. Like I have Mark standards around friends and all kinds of things where I'm like I can like me, because Mark, we're all overwhelmed. Everyone's fucking overwhelmed, guys. I don't know anyone who's not overwhelmed. Maybe you're not overwhelmed. You're living in Squamish right now, but I'll own that experience. I'm overwhelmed in my life. I'm learning some stuff around overwhelm, and I remember Mark sometimes is bad, like being present. Like he'll be on his phone when you're, and I give him shit all the time. I'm like, get off your fucking phone. Like I see you 4 times a year. And so we were in Whistler and we had planned like a no phone day to go to the Scandinave spa. And he was like on his phone. And I remember, again, people like think I'm Wonder Woman, but I cried because I am so soft and sensitive.
You cried?
Like you're on your phone. But I expressed what I needed. I was like, hey, this isn't the agreement. And he just immediately was like, you're totally right. I'm so sorry. Let's go have breakfast, and just put his phone down. It's like those are the kind of non-ego, super aware, accountable reactions that I expect from people. Like it exists. I experience it. So when people show up and they can't do that with me, I'm like, I have experienced the doorway. So don't show up here and tell me you're not capable, or maybe you're not capable of it. But like, I choose my standards over I choose my non-negotiables. One of them is I taught a masterclass called Safe to Say Anything, because that's actually a non-negotiable for me. If I can't communicate in a relationship, it's out. It's not that I keep the relationship and change my values. It's like if someone can't show up in that way, there are things that are just like hard non-starters. Do you have any non-starters in your own life?
Me?
Yeah.
Sorry, I was actively listening and being like, oh, now I have to talk. Yeah, of course. Like I've explained it to clients in a very simplistic manner, so to help people understand it. It's like, okay, a non-starter might be like, in this relationship, we do not call names. Like in this relationship, we do not punch each other in the throat. Like in this relationship, we don't put cigarettes out on each other's legs. Like these are non-starters. Like if you want to try to put a cigarette out on my leg, I'm not going to hang out with you, right? And then you kind of build, those are very obvious, right? But that's the point. It's like, oh yeah, I get that. So when you go up that sort of ladder towards, in this relationship, we don't hide things from each other. Like in this relationship, we, like Kendra and I have a rule or a guideline, like from day one, where in this relationship, we are radically honest with each other, to your point. And the way that we've described that, or like operationalized it, that's such a masculine word. The way that we utilize that is to talk about the small things like as quickly as we can. So if there's disconnection, resentment, annoyance, etc., we try to talk about those things quickly. And again, to your point, like she is a ferocious high integrity ninja queen that has very high standards. And it is one of my favorite and least favorite things about her simultaneously. Because it requires that I show up in a manner that takes energy and effort. And there's a part of me that is a lazy dude. It's like, I don't want to clean that dish right now. I want to leave it in the sink for now. Like, so yeah. So to your point about non-negotiables, I think mine have evolved more and more. So some of my non-negotiables are things that I don't necessarily love, like having hard conversations. It's like a non-negotiable. I don't love doing those things, but I know that those things are good for me. And so it's a non-negotiable in the same way that exercise is a non-negotiable or eating vegetables is a non-negotiable. It's like, I know it's good for me. And so I've kind of been leaning into this space of embracing that. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. Did I ever tell you like the first moment that I met Kendra? Actually, no, I think we did some coaching together, but the first time I met her in person, I was filming I Will Never Be a Well-Behaved Woman, which was a spoken word film in Costa Rica. And Kendra was a chef in Costa Rica at that point, and she came down and I was working with this guy, Juancho, who was this like filmmaker. Um, and Kendra walked up. Her line was, I do not need a degree to like let you know that I am intelligent. And I let every woman choose their line that was empowering for them. And she's like this kind of shorter, like feisty, beautiful, fierce rocket mama, basically is how I describe her. And she just like, when she's like, some of the other women with their lines were like, ah, and like Kendra just like stood up and was just like, I do not need a degree to show that I am intelligent, and like nailed it and walked off. And Wanjo was like, woof, she's so hot. And I was like, she's got a boyfriend. He was like, yeah, of course she has a boyfriend. Like, no shit, she has a boy. Why would she not have a boyfriend?
It's funny. You just reminded me when I was in Vancouver, you had a book launch for your last book. This is maybe a good segue. We'll talk about your new book. But your first book, this is for the women that don't give a fuck, I believe it's called. Mm-hmm. And there was like at that Lululemon place, and you made a film. You had the screening for that film because me and Groves were in the back by the snacks or whatever, watching it, and fucking Kendra was in it. Yeah. And I had only known her for like a couple of weeks at that point. And I took that as like the weirdest sign from the universe. I'm like, I think I even said to Groves, like, I think that's the girl I just started dating. Like, that's like, why would she be in Yana's video in Costa Rica? It was really surreal. So yeah, you reminded me of that. And okay, so I want to ask you about your new book, but first somebody asked in the chat, do you believe the whole loaf, going back to the bread thing with the partnership, do you believe the whole loaf is something you bake, create, grow into together? Or is it the full fuck yes loaf from the beginning that you're holding space for?
I'm seeing the whole loaf as how people show up. So I would say it's them and how they're showing up. I think we can be the whole loaf for other people, and I think they can be the whole loaf for us. I do believe relationship is a third entity, and maybe we could get metaphorical around creating a bread with someone. Oh, what just happened?
I don't know. You're still here, and great.
Okay, something just like my screen just, wow. It was like something innate. The screen just like went down. What's up, universe? What are you telling me? Isn't it funny what we give things meaning? Like that means nothing. Like that means that something just popped up on my computer, but we could give it all kinds of meanings. I was talking about this last night with we had like a very abstract conversation about the meanings human beings give to everything. Back to the loaves of bread and the meaning that we're giving those.
I love that most of our conversation is just about baking and knives, random videos.
I literally was sharing this metaphor with a man I'm dating who is a baker and owns a bakery. And like, I didn't really get it at first, like that it was so, and then I was like, I just want a whole loaf of bread. And I was like, oh, this is funny. I think that here's what I'm noticing. every single breath, movement, eye contact, body language behavior that people show up with us from the very first second, their avoidance to respond, make eye contact, all of those micro macro things, how long they take to respond to you on your phone or whatever it is, you are paying attention to all of those things. And there are people who are show up in a way where those are like what the Gottmans call little emotional bids. They're little opportunities of building trust or betrayal. And so when I think about someone who's a whole loaf of bread, they're aware that I'm watching. I'm really watching. Maybe some people don't watch it, but I'm here, and I'm watching people. That's part of presence is one of my superpowers. And so
But even just to add to that very quickly, I feel like even when you're not watching, from my experience, living with a watcher is like, is like, like, even if you didn't see something,
yeah.
like, you just know.
Yeah. I honestly, and I'd love to have a conversation about this. I got gaslit by someone I was with a lot. I'm realizing that my intuition is the boss. Like, I'm realizing that I want to trust people, but that my intuition is actually the boss. Because I think that sometimes it's wrong. I think it's okay, but like, it's another conversation around intuition and trust. But we are watching and we are feeling. And so anyways, going back to the loaf, it's a combination of feeling what's happening intuitively and I think watching. But I'm noticing with certain people who are new in my life and how they walk towards me in every moment and how that makes me feel versus other people in their dance and their process, which is fine. It's got attachment and there's things in everybody's process that are different. But I think it's really important to build that trust and to go slow and to be able to observe and pay attention to those pieces. And so when I think of a whole loaf of bread, I think it's really measuring all of those pieces, and making sure before we cut it that it's a good loaf of bread.
Beautiful.
I do write some things. Maybe I should read some poems so that.
Yeah. Do you want to read some poems?
Yeah.
So you've got like maybe to wrap this up or perhaps even open it further is that, some loaves are bigger than others. And so for some of us who are used to a very large loaf of bread, we meet somebody who has like a small loaf or a different flavor of a loaf. And we're like, that's not what I'm used to. And so I'm going to judge that, or like, that's not a whole loaf. It's just a different loaf. Make sense?
Yes, but I'm also seeing loafness as I'm actually also more so breadcrumbs is really presence and availability in the still face experiment. And so I would say someone who's a whole loaf of bread is it's more about presence and availability for the experience. And it's the degree of presence and availability they've nurtured in themselves, because if we're not present and available with ourselves, we cannot mirror or give that to people in our lives. So I think on some degree, it's the development we've done individually. And then I think it's the amount of presence and availability we are choosing to prioritize, because I will tell you that there are a few people in my phone I always respond to, and there are people in my phone that I just don't respond. There's degrees, and it's like we all want to say whatever, but it's like we're prioritizing things in our life. We're prioritizing to go on our phone and onto Instagram versus text messages. Like, we're constantly making these micro choices. And so, yeah, I think it's less like about them not being enough and more about sometimes the presence and availability have because where they are in their life or what they're choosing or who knows what they're going through, that could not be enough for me, for where I am.
Yeah, Jean in the comment used the word loafness. It's like, she said, I love loafness, all capitals with an exclamation mark. But maybe it's that. It's like, can I feel your loafness?
Yeah.
Like, or do I know that you're giving me crumbs or just a slice or like half a loaf? It's like, I feel like you're not full loafness right now.
Yeah. Like, you guys know, right? Like, I can see, yeah, like, when you're getting breadcrumbs, like, you fucking know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing I've noticed is, again, with my partner who literally used to own a dessert company. She's a very accomplished baker. She knows when, so I might be like, I'm full loaf right now. Like I'm 100% loafness. Like I'm the whole loaf. And she'll be like, I feel like you're, one slice short of a loaf. Like I feel like there's more. And she's always right, which is the annoying part. And like I might not get it in the moment or even that day, but upon reflection, it's like, yeah, it's that. And so it's this conscious relationship that I chose, is because I want somebody to be like, you're not full loaf right now, bro. Like, give me the full loaf. Like, no settling. Like, we have high standards in this relationship. One way we described it is, because of my coach, it was like A+, A-. And for a long time, I was just going A-, because still an A. What's the point of trying to get an A+? But that is me not going full loaf. Mm-hmm. All right, we should tangent out of this bakery metaphor. Janne Robinson, you have a new book out of poetry.
Yeah.
Called There's Cobwebs on Her Vagina. Yeah. Do you mind describing why you chose that title and what's going on with your book?
Yeah, because fucking patriarchy. And
I mean, that's a full loaf title if I've ever heard one. There's cobwebs on her vagina.
Do I play with shock value with my titles? Yes, I do. I chose that. I love that poem. I love that poem. I'll read that poem for you. If I'm going to read a poem, I should read that poem. And I love that poem. I feel like it's interesting because in my program that I'm in, we talk about all of the shaping in our society of what causes an individual to, act out in a way or something that happens or a behavior. So let's just say a common experience I have as a woman in this world is being objectified and sexualized. And that happens rather naturally because my body, I'm a size 0. I look like what women are sold in the beauty industry. And I'm also what men have been sold and over sexualized to buy cars and, all the kinds of things that Hollywood and media and like all of that has done. So I think that I walk out of my door and I have an individual experience in this world, right? Like I might walk down the street and like 20 dudes turn their heads or leer out or like throw some energy at me. And I want to have an individual to an individual experience. But the reality is that we've been shaped and we have to zone out to what was my family shaping? What was my community shaping? What was my school shaping? What was the institutional shaping? And patriarchy is a system that was created that was really large. And I want to just say it hasn't only failed women, it's also failed men. And that's something we don't think about. And we just get mad at, and men get sensitive about when I say fuck the patriarchy, because I think I'm saying fuck men, and I'm not. I'm saying fuck the system that has not had enough of both the feminine and the masculine parts and has ultimately failed both of us. And so this poem that I wrote is, I went from a frame of, it's pretty simple, like the stage is I was working with a client who was healing from a deeply religious sexual background. And she was trying to connect with her sexuality and her body and do some healing. And so it's a gynecologist and a mom and a daughter. The daughter's like 17 getting a checkup and the mom's in the room. And, daughter's got the purity ring on. It's like, I don't even know if that's Christian or Catholic, but that's the space. And there's this individual thing happening. And then the gynecologist, does his checkup and he's like, well, there's cobwebs on her vagina. And he starts to go on this rant and he goes into the bigger conversations of why women have cobwebs on their vagina, about the media industry, about things that happen. For me, and my value here is equality. My value here is inclusivity. My value here is respect. And it's not about women. It's just about humankind existing in a place with those values. And so when I think about those,
it reminds me of, I did a lot of stuff with street dogs. And I remember 7 or so years ago doing a fundraiser in Edmonton and raising money for there's a nonprofit called Veterinarians Without Borders I used to work with. And I would raise money and fly down and do these educational and rabies campaigns in Guatemala. And I was talking with someone who said, Yana, like, why the dogs in Guatemala? There's dogs up in northern Canada who need support. Like, why go to Guatemala? And my mentor and person I did these fundraisers with, Rayanne Woodschatz, turned to him and said, it's not that there's no borders in my world. There's no like division. It's like a dog is a dog. Where it lives doesn't matter. And that's the way that I feel about inclusivity and equality and women's rights. And so it is infuriating when people say, look at all of the progress we've made. I'm like, what? In super rich white Encinitas, look at the progress. And we actually haven't made that much progress. And meanwhile, in Afghanistan, things are going super backwards. And so this poem dances between the individual experience and the larger things happening in the world and the shaping and some of my, those beliefs around, women's rights and equality, which isn't just going to benefit women. And it isn't about dehumanizing men. It's not about now women being over men, because that's where we freak out. It's about co-creating together. It's about doing it together. And the reality is there's been this big thing and we kind of have to level out. And when you swift a pendulum, usually it kind of like goes like this a little bit, or whatever, teeter totter, whatever the fuck I'm doing. It's like, yeah, it's got to figure itself out a little bit, but eventually this is what we want. It's not about women then being up higher. I mean, we might need it for a moment so that men can finally, like some men in the world can acknowledge that like women are capable of being a president or whatever. But then it's like the goal is together. The goal is equality. And for me, that's the whole world. It's not just the people around me in the vicinity that I'm in. And so the reason I've titled my books, This is for the Women Who Don't Give a Fuck, or There's Cobwebs in Her Vagina, is I see that. I see the disconnect in what our world needs. And it's not just fucking up like women's pay. There's huge oil spills happening right now in California. There's like a ton of wildlife outside right now. Like, and I cannot surf, but they can't just leave the ocean. And it's like, we need more. If you think about some of the feminine qualities of nurturing and compassion and like the things that are on fire in our world, nature, animals, human rights, it's like, those are the things that women really give a fuck about. And we wonder why. It's like men actually we need to have that advocacy in there as well. And so that was long, but that's why I titled my book There's Cobwebs on Her Vagina. And it's because I care. It's just going to circle back to my very simple, non-professional bio of I fucking care. I fucking care about humans. I fucking care about the injustices. I care a lot. And I think that what the disconnect is around people seeing feminism or women's rights is they're not seeing that like everyone is hurting because of the inequality. Men are hurting because of that. The animals, the planet, it's like we're all fucking hurting. And so it's so crazy that there's this pushback, and it's because we're operating from ego. It's happening because also I think sometimes we dehumanize men and we get mad at men rather than it's like a fucking institution. It's like, it's a shaping, it's a structure that was created and then unconsciously a million times a day, puts these pieces in. And so it's like, so yeah, that's where I am around why choose, big, bold titles, why choose feminist titles, why choose things around women's rights. It's like, I think the two medicines our world need is on an individual level. You need to learn to be fucking honest with yourself and change your life and be honest with those around you. Number one. And number two, like, yeah, we need women walking tall in White Houses and in meetings around, global warming. And like, we need women weighing in on this world because we haven't been allowed in the rooms. And I believe that although we have beautiful gifts of nurturing and bearing children and all of these pieces, it's like the earth is our mother, and like it's all our children. It's all like we need women to nurture much bigger things right now than children as well. It's like there needs to be a space of stepping in and space made for women. So,
well, with that said, if I may provide a space for you to use your voice now, do you want to read a poem? Does it feel good for you?
Yeah.
You don't have to.
No, it does. I just.
And like, that was a really wonderful TED talk about the patriarchy. Thank you for voicing it so passionately.
It's not about men. Do you hear how it's not about men?
No, I heard. Yeah, I get it.
Men.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the disconnect. We're like failing in this world. It's like, yeah. So I also wrote this poem like 9 years ago. Do you ever like have those moments too, where you're like, have I written this poem in a different way now?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
You read something old and it's like, oh, I don't even, do I believe that anymore? I don't know if I believe that anymore. Or actually, even worse is like, I think that's not great advice, what I said there.
Yeah.
Like,
I reposted something about men following like tits and ass accounts, or like, like the soft porn accounts. And someone commented being like, I don't feel like this is like this one part. And I was like, I read it. I was like, oh yeah, I wrote this like 4 years ago. I was like, I totally agree. And I like had to go back and edit it. And then I wrote her, I was like, thanks for the advice. And she's like, thanks for being open. I'm like, yeah, it was just like parts of that still resonate, but not all of it.
That word means you're growing.
Yeah.
All right. So in 4 years, this poem is going to be looked back on with regret and disdain. But here it is now from Janne Robinson. What's it? It's the Cobwebs in Her Vagina poem.
Well, there's cobwebs on her vagina. And I think most of this still feels applicable. One thing I want to speak to before I read it, just because like we never get the chance to do that as writers, and that's kind of fun when you do something like this, is that I do feel in the sexualization and objectification of women's bodies, there's a line in this poem that says women are also to blame. And I think that I think that women are shaped over and over and over again by media, that their value is their body. And there's a lot of unconscious programming that we don't even realize is driving a lot of our behaviors and pieces around prioritizing what we look like and blah, 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 blah. And so on some level, I'm not sure how much that really we got to be compassionate with all of the shaping. So in here, I made a comment about like women are to blame. I don't know if it's so much to blame, but just that I think we've both paid for the shaping that's happened in this world. And so I do think we've participated in it. Women could have not modeled and could have not chosen to be a part of photo shoots that sold cars with their bodies. But were we really taught any differently? Were we taught better? Were we able to be, I don't feel like women are, even as little girls, it's like women are caught, it's like I saw an article once about not telling a little girl, like, you're so pretty. Like you're just programming, like that's your value, rather than like, wow, like you built a really cool sandcastle. What tools did you use? And appreciating the multifacetedness and the mind and the heart and the spirit of women haven't maybe been taught to develop those things as much, or to value those things so much in themselves. And so, yeah, like I feel differently about, it's been 8 years since I wrote this. So I just want to say that.
Yeah, that's fair. Like what I'm hearing is that the line about the blame is more about encouraging women to accept responsibility for their participation in the system, or to invite them forward to contribute towards meaningful change, something like this.
Yeah, like I quit being a model because I didn't want, like I remember a day where people walked up to me and they were just talking to me about how beautiful I was, and I was like, oh, I have like so much more going on. And like I would try and talk to them about the other things and it just didn't register. And so it was like I'm choosing to participate in a situation where I am an object, and that can not be disempowering for some people. It can be totally fine, but I chose to quit that and work on other parts of myself, and that was empowering for me. So
awesome.
All right. There's cobwebs on her vagina, the gynecologist replies, removing his head from between her freckled thighs. Her mother chokes on the air. Pardon? It's from a society that shames women for enjoying sex. One that puts purity rings on their fingers, promises them a way to God, away from pleasure. Pleasure is shameful, you hear? God is the only one that loves you. What if the husband is a jackrabbit? What if he lacks all there is to know about making a woman moan? What if she dies not having her soul ripple, her body shake, fall apart from the hands and tongue of a man who has done his work, a lover of all things woman? God, what if he's gay? What if he wishes to be making love to a man? Heaven forbid her body is never touched with the tenderness that we deserve from the moment we are born. It's from a society that throws half-naked, sexualized women in sunglasses commercials, making us hide our daughters' eyes while the men smoking Cuban cigars laugh, making millions off the easiest marketing idea invented. The female body is the greatest piece of art. Of course it sells. Shame on us for giving it away and then playing the victims, the big bad media wolves, forcing our hands to paper to sign. There are no victims here. Women are also to blame. It's from a society that shrieks at nipples, turns away. They're the same as mine, but they're sexual. Put them away. I can feel the breeze on my sweltering chest in August, but you must cover yours. It's from a society that cuts off women's genitals, doesn't give them the right to vote, to work, to live, to love who they choose, covers them in clothes, no, not to hide them from the sun, marries them away at 14 to a 21-year-old who drinks 4 bottles of whiskey a day, who falls asleep drunk after they have sex each night, boring, missionary sex with no foreplay, while she speaks quietly into the night of wanting to be a lawyer, of how she would bring justice with all her might. He closes her legs. The mother's mouth is still dropped. Masturbation, 2 times a day, 3 if needed. His white coat whisks behind him as the door shuts. Oh, mama, the world we live in is changing. Oh, yeah. Also, one of the changes I've made and noticed is that I had it to a 21-year-old called Jose. And I just feel like there was like it's like, what? Is it because he's Mexican that he drinks 4 bottles of whiskey a day? So I've noticed that I omit his name when I read it after the last few years of my growing up as a human. It was an unconscious piece of, I was like, so yeah, we grow. Yeah, that's a piece that was written inspired from a client and then kind of went wide and came in.
Well, I just love you. You're wonderful. And I'm glad that you're in my life. And I'm glad that you respond to my text messages that I'm on that list.
You are on that
and yeah, thank you so much for being who you are and for putting your truth and your heart out into the world. Thank you for those who attended the live call, those who are listening. Janne, I know you've got a website and Instagram, a couple books. I'll put links to that stuff in the show notes. But is there any final thoughts or do we cover it?
No, just thank you to Jen, Cass, Sandra, Nadine, and Jean. Thank you so much for being here. And Jer, thank you for the generosity of your presence and your time to help support this book as well. I self-published. So
yeah, like I'm literally reading it. Like you can see my bookmark. Like it's not just like, oh, buy Yana's book. It arrived in my mailbox. It's like, no, I'm reading it. I'm a fan. I like your stuff. It helps me as a writer, you know?
I like your stuff a lot too. I like that thing about you shared about relationships the other day of like bad relationships are like messy, and then you're like, just kidding. That's the good relationships. Have fun out there.
Yeah. Good luck. Well, you like that one. Wait till you read what I'm going to write about bread loaves and relationships. That's going to really set the internet on fire. All right, friend. You're a gem. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks all for tuning in.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. Bye.
She's so great. You see why I love her now? See why I want to be her friend? She's powerful and brilliant. And I've included links in the show notes to the various ways that you can find her work and her life, including her Instagram and her books. And as mentioned at the beginning, if you're interested in coming to Costa Rica, December 27th to January 3rd with me and Trevor Boehm and Lila Dilla for breathwork and yoga and workshops and food and celebration and ziplining, then check out the link in the show notes for the Costa Rica retreat called The Unfolding at liladilla.com/The Unfolding. We'd love to see you there. Thank you for listening. Thanks for the reviews. Thanks for the comments, for sharing this. I so appreciate you. It helps me to spread the word about making kindness cool and the world a little bit better than yesterday. And I thank you for being a part of that.